Hi guys, thanks for joining the next edition of my studio tour series where I'm going to be talking about vintage linens, lace, and trims. This is how my collection got started. This is hanging on the end of a big organizational armoire, and it's one of the first things I see when I enter my studio. This is Vicki, the Literal Crafter in Western New York, and I'm glad you're joining me today. The next area of storage for my vintage collection is this black, they call it a dresser, but it's a 7-drawer black unit. And the very first part is some crocheted but mostly embroidered pieces that I've cut from larger pieces. Now most of these are vintage. Some of them are not, like this is definitely not vintage, but it kind of goes in with all this stuff, so I put it in here. Those are pieces that I cut around and got ready to use in projects. So this is one of my favorite drawers. And I have the camera on a tripod right now, so I'm hoping I can get you guys some good views into here. These are all vintage pieces. Look at how gorgeous that lace is. So I labeled the drawer as doilies, but it's definitely more than doilies. These are just very vintage pieces. So I have this stack of doilies here. And I organized this way to make it easy to find what I want for a project. So these are all just kind of by size for the most part. And then the bigger ones are back here also stacked up. I used to have things separated by like the colors, but I really don't pull that way. So I made stacks of things according to how I pull. This pile is actually a variation of things, different types of laces and crocheted items. This is a beautiful piece here. Oops. Hold that up so hopefully the camera can show you that detail. So these are things that I cut into, rip apart. I might use something as a whole piece, depending on what I'm working on. Some kind of interesting pieces. I just love like the holes in that, or the circles, I guess. And this is a little box of some individual pieces that are just complete elements in and of themselves. And I do have a whole drawer full of elements, but these are kind of my favorites. They're things that I definitely want to incorporate into some projects. So I kept them separate so that I don't accidentally give them away. And here's an interesting tidbit for you. Sometimes when I do this and I set things aside and I come back to it months later, I realize I've set too much aside, and then I pull things out to sell or give away. And these are just in a little box so they don't get lost in the drawer. And that's, you know, a tip that you can really apply to any of your supplies is keep your small stuff contained. Okay, let me give you a better view into this drawer. So these are a lot of reclaimed pieces, and I'll explain to you how it's separate and why it's structured the way it is. So this is a piece that it's continuous, so it's the same repeating pattern along the whole thing. So this whole pile is reclaimed pieces that have repeating patterns throughout. So when I flip through, what I see on the top is what will be on the entire piece. And I have a pile of kind of irregular pieces. So like that's kind of irregular shaped, non-symmetrical. These are also shorter pieces. So these could have been cuffs or collars, pieces taken off of clothing. And then back here are some, well, that one's kind of irregular. These tend to be wider or See how the top has kind of that straight finished edge and then the bottom is more of a detailed edge? Most of these pieces are like that in the back. And again, going back to how I pull, what am I looking for? And that's how I came up with the piles. So if you're looking to organize your vintage linen, lace, trim collection, think about when you go to get a piece, how do you look for it? And that's how you want to configure your piles or your drawers. This piece is just in here because it does belong. It just doesn't go really with a pile. So there's a lot of this, I guess it's a type of tulle, but then it has all this lace detail. And I haven't cut it apart because I don't know how I want to use it. And maybe I want some of this attached. So I'll just cut it when I use it. Then I have a whole pile of eyelet. And then this is just kind of, I'll say, different. It doesn't go in any of the other piles. So this whole pile mostly is this kind of fringed edge. And then I have a couple of specific pieces here. This drawer isn't labeled. I think it's kind of temporary because I'm not really sure what to call it or what it's going to become. These are just some bigger pieces that could go with that drawer. They're just a little big for it. A couple of gloves that I'll end up cutting. And these three pieces I'll show you because they're just absolutely beautiful. So look at that. And I believe that this was hand done. When I look up close on the stitching on the back, I can see the irregularities. And you just don't find things like this anymore. And this is also a beautiful piece. It's not as fragile as it looks. So the darker outline, that's all stitched. And then these light pieces are just a type of sheer fabric. And so my guess is that this was done with white or off-white. And then once it was all stitched around, it was dyed. That's all I can figure out because it's not, might be individual pieces sewn together. Maybe it is. And this is just so dainty. I've used a little bit of this and I want to definitely use more. So when I bought this, it was whole, and then I got it home and handled it and it completely disintegrated. I'm okay with that. So these are stitched pieces and they fell off their sheer or tulle, whatever that fabric was. So I kept all of the pieces that kind of stayed intact. And then look at these flowers. See if I can get you a good view of that. So those are stitched flowers. And then I believe that the fabric was painted. That feels like paint and it looks like paint. I'm going to hold this up again because I think maybe my hand was in front of the camera. So I just put them in this kind of makeshift envelope so I could keep them together, keep them protected, easily find them, easily get to them. Okay. This is just some doily pieces. And I think I probably need to bring the camera down, so just bear with me. I'm going to jiggle the camera a little bit. So these are pieces like this was cut off of a tablecloth and then dyed. Most of these were taken apart from something larger. These will be cut when I'm ready to use them. Oh, and this is not part of my vintage collection. I'll share it with you since we're looking in this cabinet. So these are pieces of fabric that I've cut, and there is some vintage fabric in here. So like I just cut this rose pattern out. Oops, I have a lot of this, I had a lot of this fabric. So I was okay kind of cutting into it and just cutting out some shapes or pieces to sew onto things. And then this other, the blues and the purples and the greens was, I think it was some kind of a fabric tablecloth. I wasn't sure when I bought it what it was, but I think that's what it was. And I just thought it was pretty, and it has these has words all over it. So like along the floral path, that'll be cool sewn onto something. Magnificent gardens blossom anew. So I have some musical elements there. And then I have some gray and yellow. And so that drawer was empty, and that's why I put everything in there. Okay, we're going to move to, actually, since we're here, we're going to look at trim for a moment. Let me just move the camera. So these organizers are invaluable. I have 6 or 7 of them. For most of it is vintage laces and trims. There are some things in here that are not vintage. And then I also have fussy cuts in a few of these. So I just love these organizers. So you can see I have eyelets. These I call elements because they have individual elements on them. This hanger does not. This one's kind of broken. It doesn't twist. So I can't let go of this to show you. But let me kind of get close. Like, hopefully you can see there that those are individual roses. I could cut them apart, blossoms. Oops. Then I have white vintage trim. Most of this is vintage. I think there's a couple pieces that might not be, but they look vintagey. I need to set the camera down for a second, guys. Sorry about that. Hard to do this one-handed, but there's really no way for me to do it with the tripod. So this is just white lace. I don't think hardly anything on this one is vintage. There might be a couple vintage pieces there. And then I have off-white, non-vintage lace, black and brown. And then there's some pinks in there. And then this is vintage lace that is white. So this is all white-based items. We're going to come around to the other side here. Oops. So this is, and you can see that I have some labels on these, small trim, not white. And I label them because when I get new pieces, I want to put them away where they go. And you'd think, oh, you would just look at this and know. But honestly, I didn't. So I did end up labeling them, and it makes it easier to find what I'm looking for. The back side of this is just coffee dyed trims, some laces. Then I have vintage lace that is not white, and this is all vintage. It's interesting that I come across the off-white, not white, tan, caramel, whatever, all the time, and I very rarely come across vintage white lace. Then we have, coming back to trim, and in my mind, the lace and the trim is a little different. Hard for me to describe, it's just how my mind thinks of it. I think of trim as pieces like, you know, this that have that decorative edging and that aren't just that soft, whimsical lace. So that's how I differentiate them. Then I have, oops. Trying to get to the back side here. Oh, that's just more of the same. So like I said, I love these organizers. They hold so much, and I can just look at my whole inventory at once and see what I have. Okay. Now, my vintage collection is kind of spread around my room, but if you've watched my other videos, you know that I'm really about optimizing space. And so I put things where they optimally fit and where they're convenient for me to get to, and things I use more are out and things I use less are put away. Okay, so here is more of my vintage collection. And this could be anywhere from something like this piece to an actual like finished lace. See how that's like finished top and bottom there. So I got these particular organizers on Amazon. I think I got them on Amazon. And I got to tell you, they aren't great. So I think they're intended like for undergarments. And they have no structure to them. So I'm just showing you this in case you're interested in something like this so you can kind of know how to prepare yourself. I filled it up with the lace and it still kind of collapsed. So I added these cardboard pieces periodically just to give it some structure so that it wouldn't collapse in on itself. So they are useful. It just kind of stinks that they're so flimsy. Okay, since we're over here, I'm going to show you some other pieces. Some of these are not vintage, but it kind of goes with the whole lace theme. So I have, this is all cotton lace. There's very little vintage in here. There might be one or two. This is, you know, mostly just store-bought stuff. And then down here in these drawers, trying to give you guys a good view here. Hard to do this one-handed with the camera. So this is just various white laces. Most of these were cut off of larger pieces. I started using them in projects and then just threw them in this drawer. And then I have black in here. And if I come across lace that I get and it's not that big, it just goes in one of these drawers. But you'll see where my main collection is. So this is white and black, and there might be a little bit of off-white somewhere in here, yeah. And these are pieces that I like to use as backing on other, you know, for embellishments and focal points. And they tend to be, some of these, like this is really easy to tear. I call that a cheap tearing lace. And then some of them are more solid or opaque. This is all off-white. These are just vintage pieces. So these could be offcuts or just small pieces that I had come across. And these are all coffee dyed. And some of this is not vintage, it's newer pieces, but I coffee dyed it. So you can see I still am able to find a way to have categories for the vintage pieces. Now this, there's no categories. The whole thing, it's just vintage pieces. They're kind of wide pieces or big squares that are folded up. Okay, we're gonna move on to some crocheted pieces. So these I mentioned before. I have a drawer of all individual pieces that are complete in and of themselves. And this is that drawer. And oh, I should have done this ahead of time to show you guys a storage idea. When you have a drawer, I'm just looking to see, I don't have anything handy right now. When you have a drawer like this, and I'm going to drop the camera right in it so you can see. Okay, so what I was trying to show you there is all that empty space in the drawer. And I don't see myself piling these up really high. They would just tip over and be a mess. So the idea that I came up with, and I've done this in some other even more shallow drawers, is to create like a tray system. So I can get, now I'm going to grab one right now just to show you guys. So pardon the camera for a minute. You're going to be moving through the studio. And we're coming back. Okay, so this is what I mean. This is the lid to a photo box. And what I can do is I can just set this in here, put things in it, and it creates kind of like another shelf, and it's letting me use the space from here up. Then when I want to see what's underneath, I just lift out the whole tray. And this system works in any drawer where you have space and you want to, you know, stack, but without having to go through everything on the top. So that's why I like the idea of the tray system. This drawer is broken and taped because for some reason, when people come over, that's the drawer they want to check out. And when this drawer jams, these jam. I need to restore this cabinet, it's just not a priority right now. Okay, these are non-white crocheted items that I am cutting into, I have already cut into, I am using. And this drawer and the one below it is available. When people come and craft with me, I let them know that while they're here, if they want to cut something off of this for the project they're working on, they can go ahead and do that. I'm not looking to supply people's stash. I really don't want people to come over, take chunks, and just take them home and put them in their stash. It's really just so that they have elements that they can work with while they're here. So this is mostly white and slightly off-white pieces in here, crocheted or mostly crocheted. See, and here's just a little box. These are some crocheted pieces that I threw in here. They're not complete elements themselves, they're just offcuts. And just, again, staying in tune to having a modular studio and easy to move. This is sitting on a furniture mover, so you can see those wheels under there. I can wheel this whole thing easily. Okay, really quick, there's another organizer. And that has just ephemera in it. Fussy cuts, whatever you want to call them. Okay. Now we have another chest of drawers. This matches the other chest. And go ahead, make fun of me. It's okay. I have things labeled. And I tried this without labels, and boy, did I make a mess looking for stuff. So this whole cabinet is almost all hankies. So like these are lace edged and they might have some stitched elements on them, but for the most part, they have lace on the outside. These are mostly plain. They might have a tiny bit of decoration. Very vintage. These are somewhat rare, hard to find. These are ones that I thought would be good to use as pages in a book, right? So just fold that and use that as a page or fold it over the top of a page. Then in the back, they're not labeled, but I know exactly what they are. These are silk and kind of dainty. And these are some embellished or colored, whatever. I pulled these aside because I want to use them in projects. So those are kind of mine, if you will. And then there's a little bit of room in the back for expansion. This index card kind of gives me it's my index of hankies. Tells me what's in this drawer, what's hanging up, what's in the other cabinet, the crocheted items. Okay, so these are, I have hankies that have single elements embroidered on them. So this is tone on tone. Hopefully the camera's showing you. So let's just say I'm doing a project and I want to utilize a hanky that has an element on it, or maybe I want to cut out the element and sew it onto something. This is where I would go first. This is also single elements, so I have two piles of that. And then this has multiple elements or stitched borders. This is what I call stitched lace. I honestly don't know what the right name is. And then those are just large pieces in the back. Like that's not embroidered, but it's kind of hanky material textured with, I think that's tatting. And this is my messy drawer. I honestly don't know how this ended up being in the middle of these drawers, but these are pieces that, again, these are kind of my faves. So these are pieces when I want to cut into something, this is where I come to first. I like the colors, the textures, the sizes. Think of that as my private stash. And these are fringed hankies, edged hankies. I'm not really sure how to describe it. So this is all neutral here, coffee dyed, and then you can see colors, pink, goldish, green, purple, black, or gray. And then there's just empty space in the back for expansion. And then down here we have embellished hankies. Either the hanky themselves are colored, or they have colored embroidery. And yes, in my freakish organizational way, and go ahead, you guys can tease me for being neurotic about this, they're color coded. So this is like reds and pinks. So even though that has a green edge, to me that's more red. And then there's greens and blues, and then orange and yellow, and then in the back are either pieces that are multicolored or they're large. Most of these are all multicolored. Oops. And then we're going to come back around the studio. Oh, I'll just show you this piece. I just bought this. Isn't that beautiful? That's a tablecloth. Yeah, I haven't decided. I'm sure you guys are wondering too. What am I going to do with it? I don't know if I'm going to cut it up. I might cut it up and put it in fabric bundles, and I'm going to dye some stuff. I haven't decided yet. Might sell it whole. Okay, I have two drawers here of pieces that I've started to pull to part with. I will probably put together some vintage bundles and sell them. So as I come across pieces that I'm willing to give up, I'm putting them in these drawers. And there's definitely going to be more added. This is just what I came across as I was looking for stuff, but I'm going to purposely go through my inventory and figure out what I want to part with. Okay, I do have something else to show you. And then I'm going to show you my non-vintage lace collection. Okay. So some of you, if you've been on any kind of live with me, maybe in classes that I've taken or during the BB Bash, then you've seen this behind me in my videos. And this is a doily collection. Most of them are crocheted. This is about 7 feet long. So I'm going to try to get the camera to pan down so you can see. And this is a header in the basement. It's helping to support the house. And so I just hung these hankies on there. And they are for use. You know, I'll sew them on things, cut them up or whatnot. I just like the way they look, so I display them. Okay, let's take a look at the non-vintage lace. And I got to try to do this quickly. So at some point, that light is going to turn off. It's going to get pitch black. I'll back up and reactivate the motion light. So what we have here is a movable wardrobe. I'm just trying to show you what that is. Got this on Amazon. It has 2 levels. And then it just has the zippy cover on it. And I call this panel lace. So this could be curtains, it could be dresses, blouses. It's lace that I've reclaimed. And I'm going to try to just quickly explain to you the organization. So I have off-white down here. I have white here. And then I have colors. And then at the end there is cheesecloth. So the lace is categorized. It's kind of hard to see. I don't know if I get the camera far enough away to show you. Sometimes being too close is a problem. So these are, again, what I think of as a stitched lace. Then I have some, I don't know if you'd call it mesh. Trying to get it into the camera view here. Oh. And then I'll call it soft or pretty lace. And then more opaque or solid type pieces. And then it follows the same convention down the white. And then I have just one organizer there of coffee dyed, and then it goes into the colors. And I'll just grab one of these to show you. This is a super efficient way of hanging lace. So I'm going to try to pull the camera away so you can see. It's one of these multi-hangers. And you can hang them on both sides. So you can see at the bottom here, I have one on this side, but I could put all on that side too. And then we have this side. It's a big space saver. I'll put that back. Then there are items like this. And so because that is still in its tank top form, I just hung it on a hanger. Eventually, when I cut at the top there, and it won't hang anymore, I'll move it over to one of those clippy hangers. Okay, I'm just going to move back to keep that motion light active. And then on the bottom here, I have black lace. And then I have some linen style pieces. So some of these were quite large, and I cut pieces off and just hung them up in here. Not really lace, but along that lines. I have some pieces that I bought, curtains and things that I thrifted, clothing to take apart. I call this cheap lace, and I use it for tearing, more tearing lace. And then in the back here are clothes that I bought for the textures or the color to use in projects. And again, eventually I'll cut into them in a way that they won't hang like that, and they'll either get moved to a clippy hanger or to a drawer or something. Trying to give you a good view with the camera here, so like you can see, look at all that yummy texture. Oh, sorry guys, that's the problem with the motion light. So just to give you a feel for some of the things that I've thrifted. And so that is my, I'll say my non-vintage, but there's definitely some vintage in here. I mean, that is just absolutely beautiful. It's very old. It's got holes all over it. That, you know, the mesh part is not in very good shape, but gosh, is that gorgeous. Okay, so that takes you through my vintage and non-vintage lace collections. We're back to where we started. I hope you got some organizational ideas, and really kind of where you put stuff depends on what types of pieces you have, what types of furniture or storage you have, and what types of vintage pieces you have. But I think it really comes down to this category is really about how you pull your stuff, and organizing by how you pull will make you more likely to use what you have. So if you liked the video, I appreciate a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel. I hope you have a fantastic crafty day and that you stop back soon. Bye guys.